We're going back to nearly the beginning of the game industry for this one. Right?
A long time ago.
Yes.
Long time ago.
So I think I met Rand Miller maybe in the mid-90s, 1996 or so, before Riven launched in 1997. But after the very successful launch of Myst. You should be congratulated for just making it this whole way. Right?
We should be congratulated that we're still in some way in the game industry, and we didn't have to resort to, I don't know, other things.
We're
Starbucks.
Still alive. That's the great thing about being here. So if you look back all that time to something that I think is still relevant to people making decisions today, is like why did you make Myst for a brand new device at the time, the CD-ROM? Right? Which no one had ever heard of, right?
So, yeah, I mean, everybody here probably understands technology is just mesmerizing. I mean, some people do stuff for money. We make these worlds because we're just enamored at the idea that you can do this and go to another place. I mean, how cool is that I get to do that for a living? So, I mean, we started doing trivial little black and white, literally, not even grayscale, black and white worlds, and we felt a little twinge at that point of like, wow, this feels like another place. And as the technology increased, we kept feeling like we could make our worlds a little more interesting and sophisticated and immersive. And when CD-ROM came out, it felt like, well, we can make worlds that are really big and send them to people, and they can be lost in them for a long time.
But this was a crazy leap of faith, right?
Yeah, we're probably not the best business company. It worked out okay for us. I don't recommend doing this, or maybe I do. If you're passionate about it, just keep trying and failing, or at least pull yourself up by your bootstraps and give yourself more rolls of the dice, and maybe one of them will hit, like it did with us with Myst. But it was, the installed base was small enough where kind of shouldn't have done it, but it felt like it just felt like the right thing, not from a business point of view.
So after Myst came Riven, and it was a very different experience for you guys. The tech really changed in the meantime, and it took 5 years to make it. I don't remember how long Myst took, but it was a long struggle for you guys. Can you talk about that as well?
Yeah, Riven was a luxury because when you have a game like Myst that makes lots of money for your company, you have this nice breath after that where you can either decide to retire or do what comes afterwards and put all your money into it, and that's what we did with Riven. And it's beautiful to this day. I go back and look at it, and because it's pre-rendered, the technology we use, the images look photorealistic to this day. They don't move, but they look good. It had that whole side of things. When you grow and have all that money, it presents its own problems because, oddly enough, a lot of times your projects either shrink or grow to fill the money space that you have. And since we had a lot of money, we spent a lot of money on it. So it ends up being a wonderful product because of that, but it definitely was consuming, and there was a lot of friction because of that as well, because everyone was so passionate about it.
And it was a huge success as well, I guess. I mean,
it did good enough. I don't think anything topped Myst, but it was it certainly kept us in business for a little while longer.
But there have been sort of ups and downs for you guys. You've had some failures along the way. Myst Online was one of the things that came next, right?
No, that's not a failure. It was just ahead of its time. I am not. I mean, I don't know how to put this. Failures are good, and you hear that all the time from people. It's almost ridiculous, and I know when I hear that from people, I'm like, well, no, I don't want to hear that from you. But the fact is, if you can plan to to learn from something and realize that what you take away are some interesting experiences that will contribute to your next thing, your next roll of the dice, then it's not really a failure, it's more like an education. So yeah, unfortunately for us, we thought that, well, Myst is great, and people like going to that other world, and Myst was bigger and better and better looking. We should just make a world that never ends. And we looked at broadband, and rather than thinking that people wanted to explore worlds with millions of their closest friends, we thought that maybe broadband would tie in with us delivering new content in an interactive world on a regular basis. And so we put a whole pipeline into place and built our own engine and did a massively multiplayer game based on Myst that was going to have content change on a monthly basis. It was awesome. To this day, I'm so proud of what we were able to do. It's still available for free if you guys want to go try it. But it was for whatever reason, publisher possibly with a little bit of cold feet in the broadband or MMO space and being a little bit ahead of the curve. I don't know. It failed massively, and we spent a lot of money on it. And it would have been easy to just collapse in a heap, but we learned a lot, and I think we moved forward a little wiser from that whole thing.
You essentially became more of an indie after this, right? And
yeah.
I don't know, and now as you entered into the virtual reality world, it's really as an indie, right? And
yeah. I mean, we started as an indie. You can't get more indie than your brother and you in a garage or wherever. I guess you can have one person, but that is truly small as you get. Anyway, we started that way. We grew to our maximum, which was Riven, and then Myst Online, Uru, and then off the cliff, but stayed alive because I like doing this. It's just cool building these worlds. And so we're doing the nice indie sine wave where you get some funding and you build something, and then we didn't make enough money to do the next thing. So so yes, but yeah.
But you got excited about VR next, right?
We do, yeah. VR is, we did a VR game, Abduction, and released that a year or two ago, and we learned a lot with that. It was a hybrid, but it works. What I learned from that mainly is that I don't want to do flat screen anymore. If I'm doing worlds and I want worlds to be immersive, once I put on a headset, it was like, okay, I can't go back. I don't know how I can get more immersive than this, but I can't go backwards. It's kind of like maybe doing color for the first time and then saying, well, let's do a black and white world again now. I mean, aside from the stylistic aspects of that, it would be hard. So yes, that's how I feel about VR, and it's interesting because as much as it immerses you visually, I think the thing that's as appealing to me or really intriguing to me is the user interface. I saw VR years ago, back with giant computers, refrigerator-sized computers, and really screen door displays, and it was interesting and it was cool. But this last time, going to, I think Valve is where we saw Vive, picking up the hands and having hands in that space, I think tipped me over the edge that this was something new, because I think it was an interesting journey to go from that simple interface on Myst, just click, finger on a hand that intuitively you kind of knew what to do. Well, in that space, I remember, like it was yesterday on the Vive and that on the mountaintop, and there's sticks on the ground, and nobody gave me instructions, and it didn't say push A to pick up sticks, or it was just there's sticks on the ground. I have a hand. I should pick them up. There's a little dog. I should throw them. It was intuitive and natural, and it made me want to make worlds that way.
So VR is not sort of taking off as quickly as everybody hoped. You've figured out some ways to stay busy in the meantime. You've got a Kickstarter that launched, right?
We have a Kickstarter that I think, oddly enough, and I'm not trying to pitch, but it's really weird. We started it this morning, and I think it's like we just reached our goal, like now, or like close. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like so close. It's like while I'm talking, which is really bizarre. But anyway, it's a 25th anniversary of Myst, so that's why it was. That's why it's just a kind of a celebration of that. Not a biggie, but
small. I mean, $250,000. Right?
It helps.
Not a small goal.
As an indie, that helps. A lot of that's going to go because we're trying to give people real Myst books that have little panels that have fly-throughs in them, which is kind of what we wanted. Now we can make them and each have one. So yeah.
That's cool.
But those are the things I mean, as an indie, we're scrappy. We did the abduction for Kickstarter abduction, and then we did this one. We don't want to do Kickstarters every time, but it's another way to kind of keep things going and ride the next wave.
So what do you want to have in the platform that you always wanted to have? You know, this platform of the future, I guess.
Oh my goodness! I just want VR right now. I want it to not have trunks of cable attached to it that wrap around my legs, and I want it to look better, and I want it to be less weighty on my face and head. I just want practical things, but those are easy. We all know how that works. We all know where that's going. We all know it takes a few years for the geniuses who do hardware to do all that stuff, and we all know that they're in the labs doing that now, and we're seeing some of the fruits of that already. So that just excites me. At some point in the fairly near future, and by the way, I already feel like I lived into the future. Just letting you guys know, I have gray hair. I have my wife and I say all the time, "Yep, we made it. We lived into the future. That's good." We don't have the flying cars yet. I may get to see those. It's close to that too. But so a couple VR improvements, and I'm going to feel really satisfied. You know, making a world that people can get lost in. It sounds like you know, that's exactly what we said with Myst. Oddly enough.
Yeah. So you know, the game industry isn't easy. A lot of people go through crunch. You know, they sometimes wonder why am I doing this? Why did I, you know, sort of sign up for decades of hard work, right? What's your own sort of advice for these people?
Don't do games.
How to last
do
that
not
long?
do games. Honestly, it's funny because we at our office sometimes we'll have local school kids will come by and see, you know, it's a game company. It ought to be cool, or I'll go talk to the high school programming class or art class or whatever, and I always start out that way. It's like, no, don't do this for a living. Do not. And I feel like that's actually a really valid thing to tell kids, because unless they really want to, you should just tell them not to. This is really, really hard. And I still remember Robin, after we did Riven, my brother, decided to get out of gaming. It's like, okay, I need a break, and I'm going to go do linear medium. And I remember him telling me after a few years, I don't know, it was years later when he was making films or doing films, he was like, oh my gosh. And I don't mean to insult anybody here who does films, but he said, films are so easy. And I think it's not, I mean, I think it oversimplifies it, but from a point of view of making games, this is really insane what we do, because we're shooting at a moving target, trying to predict when you're going to get the right balance of the number of people will have this versus so that it can support you, but forward-looking so that it doesn't look old, and you have to hit it in a really nice sweet spot. And on top of that, you have to the delivery device is not just something that every theater has or people have in their living room. It's a different format with different graphics cards, and you have to realize all that. And on top of that, you're not just doing it linearly, you're making things where people can actually interact with what you're doing, and you're trying to tell them a story and give them interaction at the same time and trick them into making them think that they're in control of this world, but you can't really put them in control of this world because there's too many variables. And so all of that adds up to really complex things, and I applaud anybody who keeps doing that. You're crazy, but I'm crazy too, because it's just so awesome to be able to have all that at your fingertips. And it's, of all the amazing things, it seems like the tools are available to make it easier than ever, but what that means is we just make them more complex than ever. And yeah, so don't do it, but if you do, man, is this fun.
So, let me pull this out. Gotta open it, actually. So I've been running these conferences for 10 years and doing this for decades, right? This is actually what we call the first time we've given this award. First time we've given any award for GamesBeat. We pick Game of the Year and things like that, right? But this is the GamesBeat Visionary Award.
Wow.
And so this is for you.
Oh my God.
So it's for that crazy leap of faith, but not doing it just once, but doing it over and over, and sticking around for decades, and staying on the bleeding edge of what games can be.
That's cool. It's stuff like this that makes me want to keep trying it. That and not having enough money to retire. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
That's awesome, Dean. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.